She walked into her own store like any other customer that morning, dressed simply, hair tied back, no makeup. Nobody recognized her. Why would they? Emma had built that empire from nothing, but she'd been away for months, setting up new locations. Her employees had never seen the owner's face, only her name on their paychecks. The moment she stepped through the glass doors, she felt it, that shift in the air. The way eyes moved over her, assessed her, and found her lacking. A young sales associate near the entrance, blonde and polished, glanced at her girlfriend, waiting outside, and whispered something to her coworker. They both laughed. Emma's chest tightened, but she kept walking, observing, taking mental notes. This was supposed to be a routine check, blending in to see how her staff treated regular customers. She never imagined she'd become the test subject for something far darker. She approached a display of handbags, high-end leather pieces she'd personally selected from Italian suppliers. Her fingers traced the stitching when she heard the voice behind her, sharp and dismissive. "Those are quite expensive. Maybe you'd be more comfortable in our outlet section downstairs." Emma turned. The store manager, a woman named Jessica, whom she'd hired based on glowing recommendations, stood with her arms crossed, a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. There was something else there too, something cruel lurking behind that professional mask. Emma asked about the price, playing her role. Jessica's smile widened, venomous now. "Honey, I don't think you understand the kind of clientele we serve here. This isn't exactly a place for your type." Your type. The words hung in the air like poison. Emma knew exactly what she meant. She'd seen her girlfriend outside, seen the way they'd held hands briefly before Emma entered. That single gesture had marked her, categorized her, made her less than human in their eyes. How many other customers had they treated this way? How many people had walked out of her store feeling small, unwanted, humiliated? The thought made her blood run cold, but she maintained her composure, asking to speak with other staff members, wanting to see how deep this rot went. It went deeper than she could have imagined. Over the next hour, Emma moved through her own store like a ghost, invisible and visible, all at once. She was followed by security, a young man who radioed to others that there was a suspicious person on the floor. She was redirected away from premium sections 3 separate times. When she asked about employment opportunities, a supervisor actually laughed in her face and said they needed people who fit the brand image. Each interaction was a knife twist, but Emma documented everything mentally, remembering names, recording conversations discreetly on her phone. The betrayal wasn't just professional anymore. It was personal, a violation of everything she'd tried to build, but nothing prepared her for what happened in the private shopping lounge. Emma had designed that space herself, a luxurious area for VIP customers. She'd requested to see it, claiming a friend had recommended the store's exclusive service. The assistant manager, a man named Derek, reluctantly led her there, his distaste obvious in every gesture. Once inside, away from public view, he dropped all pretense. "Look, I'm going to be straight with you," he said, blocking the doorway. "We don't want problems here. We don't want complaints from our real customers about feeling uncomfortable. So, why don't you just leave quietly, and we'll forget this whole thing happened, okay?" His tone was threatening now, no longer hiding behind corporate politeness. Emma felt her heart pounding, not from fear, but from a rage so pure it nearly blinded her. These people she'd given jobs to, trusted with her dream, were turning her own store into a fortress of bigotry. She asked one simple question that made Derek's face go pale. "And who exactly do you think owns this store?" He laughed, but there was uncertainty creeping in now. "Some corporate group? Doesn't matter. I'm the one who runs this floor, and I'm telling you to leave." Emma pulled out her phone, not to record this time, but to make a call. She dialed the corporate office, the direct line that only a handful of people in the world had access to. Derek watched, confused, as she spoke calmly into the phone. "Hi, Sarah. It's Emma. Yes, I'm at the downtown location. I need you to pull the employment files for everyone currently working today's shift. It's all of them, and call our legal team. We're going to need them." The confusion on Derek's face slowly morphed into something else as recognition dawned. Emma watched it happen in real time. The moment he understood exactly who she was, the moment his entire world began to crumble. She ended the call and looked at him with a calmness that terrified him more than any shouting could have. "You ask who owns this store? I do. Every brick, every fixture, every item you just told me I wasn't good enough to touch. Mine, and for the past hour, I've been documenting systematic discrimination that's apparently been happening under my roof, in my name, destroying everything I built." Derek tried to speak, to apologize, to explain, but Emma held up her hand. The door opened behind him, and Jessica rushed in, having been alerted by staff that something was wrong. She stopped dead when she saw Emma's face, really saw it now, and the recognition hit her too. Within 20 minutes, the store was in controlled chaos. Sarah arrived from corporate with 2 lawyers and the HR director. The security footage was pulled, showing not just Emma's treatment, but weeks of similar incidents with other customers who didn't fit their poisonous definition of acceptable. Emma sat in her own office, the one she'd only seen through architects' renderings, and watched her employees being called in one by one. Some tried to defend themselves, claiming they were following company culture, not realizing the company culture they created was entirely their own invention, a rot that had spread in her absence. Others broke down, begging for second chances they didn't deserve. Jessica tried to shift blame to corporate training, to policies that didn't exist, to anything but her own choices. Derek simply sat in silence, understanding there was nothing he could say that would save him. But Emma wasn't finished. She gathered the entire staff in the main floor after closing, standing on the platform usually reserved for fashion shows, looking down at the 50 faces that represented her workforce. Some looked ashamed. Some looked defiant. Others looked terrified. "Okay," she spoke clearly, her voice carrying through the expensive sound system she'd had installed for customer experience. "I built this company because I believed in creating spaces where everyone could feel valued, where quality and service were undependent on who you love or what you look like or how much money you appear to have. I hired each of you because I trusted you to share that vision. Kay, I walked through my own store and experienced something I never thought possible. Kay, I was made to feel less than human by people I'd given opportunities to. Kay, people who were supposed to represent me and my values." She paused, letting the weight settle. "Some of you participated actively in what happened today. Some of you stood by and said nothing. Both are unforgivable." The terminations were swift. Jessica, Derek, and 4 others who'd been directly involved were let go immediately, escorted from the building by the same security Derek had sixed on Emma hours earlier. But Emma didn't stop there. She restructured the entire hiring and training process, implemented mandatory diversity training with real consequences, and, most importantly, installed herself in the store for the next 3 months to personally oversee the rebuilding of the culture she'd envisioned. She reached out personally to every customer who'd filed complaints about treatment in the store, customers whose concerns had been dismissed by the very managers she'd just fired. She offered sincere apologies, refunds, and an open invitation to return and see the changes being made. The story leaked, of course. Within days, local news picked it up, then national outlets. The narrative was irresistible: billionaire owner goes undercover in her own store, discovers discrimination, cleans house. Emma gave carefully worded interviews, not to glorify herself, but to shine a light on how easily prejudice can infiltrate any organization when leadership isn't vigilant. She used her platform to talk about the responsibility of business owners to actively create inclusive environments. It's not just assume they exist. The backlash against the fired employees was severe. Their names and faces circulating online, their actions becoming cautionary tales. Emma didn't participate in that public shaming, but she didn't protect them from it either. They'd made their choices, and consequences had always been part of that equation. 3 months later, Emma stood in the same store during a grand reopening event. The staff was different now, diverse in every sense of the word, trained not just in sales, but in human dignity. She watched customers flow through, saw the genuine smiles from her employees, heard the authentic welcomes. A young woman approached her, nervous but determined. "I was here that day," she said quietly. "The day you came in. I was working the floor, and I saw what they did to you. I didn't say anything, and I've regretted it every single day since. I was so afraid of losing my job, of going against the managers, but I should have been more afraid of losing my integrity. Thank you for giving some of us a second chance to prove we can do better." Emma looked at her, saw the genuine remorse, and nodded. We all have moments we're not proud of. What matters is what we do next. Show me you meant what you said. Show every customer who walks through that door that they matter, regardless of anything else. The store became a case study in business schools, an example of how leadership from the top can either enable discrimination or actively dismantle it. Emma's company expanded, but she never forgot that day, never stopped doing surprise visits to her locations, always watching for signs that the poison might be seeping back in. She established an anonymous reporting system that went directly to her, bypassing all management layers, ensuring that frontline employees had a voice without fear of retaliation. Some criticized her methods as too harsh, argued that people deserved forgiveness. Emma's response was always the same. Forgiveness is personal, but consequences are professional. She could forgive the people who'd humiliated her. She could never allow them to represent her company again. Years later, at an LGBTQ+ business summit, Emma told the full story publicly for the first time, every detail of that day and what came after. The audience was silent, hanging on every word, feeling the anger and the triumph in equal measure. When she finished, a young entrepreneur raised her hand during the Q&A session, voice shaking. "How did you stay so calm? How did you not just explode at them in the moment?" Emma smiled, remembering the rage she'd felt, the way it had burned through her veins. "I did explode," she said. "It's just not in the way they expected. I exploded by taking away everything they thought they had power over. Their jobs, their authority, their ability to make others feel small. Sometimes the quietest response is the most devastating, and I wanted them to understand exactly what they'd done, not in the heat of confrontation, but in the cold light of consequences they couldn't argue away." The question everyone really wanted to ask came from a journalist in the back. "Do you think they learned anything? Do you think any of them genuinely changed?" Emma considered this carefully. "I hope so. I genuinely do. But whether they learned or not isn't my responsibility anymore. My responsibility is to the people who trust my brand, who walk into my stores hoping for a good experience, who deserve to be treated with basic human respect, regardless of who they are." That's what I focused on then, and it's what I focus on now. The people I fired had to figure out their own journey. I couldn't do that work for them. I wasn't going to sacrifice my customers' dignity while they tried. What would you have done in Emma's position? Would you have revealed yourself immediately, confronted them in the moment, or done exactly what you did? Have you ever experienced discrimination in a business and wondered if the owner knew what was happening in their name? Drop your stories in the comments below. Hit subscribe to follow more stories of justice served and people who refused to stay silent. And share this with someone who needs to know that taking the high road does not mean accepting mistreatment. It means choosing your battles wisely and winning them completely. Emma's store still stands today, thriving and profitable. Proof that doing the right thing isn't just morally correct, it's good business. She walked in as a customer they tried to throw away, and walked out having thrown away every piece of the toxic culture they debuilt. They thought they had the power because they controlled the floor. They forgot who actually owned the building, okay? And that mistake cost them everything.